Hi, I'm Jono. Welcome to a Lunatone application video. In this video, we'll go through the steps needed for setting up your first dashboard using the IoT's Node Red interface. We'll also show you how to set up cross-line functionality. Then we will connect to it and use it to control our DALI line. In this test setup, we'll be using an IoT Node Red interface connected to a LED RGBW dimmer. We will need a 24-volt power supply for the dimmer and the IoT device, as well as a DALI power supply for the DALI bus. Finally, we will need an Ethernet cable to connect the IoT interface to our computer or network. The IoT can be used as an interface for the DALI line. This means that you can address and commission DALI lines using the DALI cockpit and the DALI 2 IoT. To learn more about addressing the DALI line, please watch our example DALI installation or advanced DALI cockpit videos. To connect to the IoT, we need to confirm the IoT is correctly powered and communicating with the computer. We can use the lights on the IoT to confirm this. When a connection is established, a green LED turns on next to the Ethernet port. A yellow LED then starts to flash when data is being sent across the line. This confirms that our IoT is powered and communicating with our computer correctly. From here, we can connect to the IoT using a web browser and connecting to the IP of the IoT. When connecting the IoT to a network or PC, the IoT will first try to receive an IP via the DHCP. If the IoT is not issued an IP via DHCP after about a minute, the IoT will fall back to 169.254.0.1 with a subnet mask of 255.255.0.0. This means that you will need to set your computer's IP address and subnet mask to the same range to be able to access the IoT directly. If the IoT is plugged into a system that is DHCP capable, then the IoT will receive an IP address from the DHCP server. To find the IP of the IoT, you can look up the IP in the DHCP server, the DALI cockpit bus interface, or by a UDP discovery search on your network by searching for type DALI 2 IoT. Then you can directly connect to the IP using your web browser. Now that we have correctly set up the connection to the IoT, we can access the web interface for the IoT. Open a web browser and connect to the IP of the IoT. If connected correctly, you will see a web page for the IoT. This page will have upload, download, firmware update, Node Red, if using the Node Red version of the IoT, link with cloud and settings pages. Let's quickly go through some important pages to familiarize yourself with this web page. In the upload page, you can find upload DALI macros, upload a backup of your IoT with system configuration, or upload a list of device names if you have named addressed devices on your DALI line, which you can also both download in the Downloads tab. In the Node Red page, you are able to access the Node Red Flow Editor and the dashboard. Additionally, you can see all additional packages that have been installed. In the Settings page, you can modify the settings of the IoT, whether the device pings the DALI line and if the device queries devices on the DALI line. If you augment the URL with the addition of IP address /docs, you can find a documentation on the device's RESTful API. Now that we have gone through the pages, let's look at the Flow Editor. Click on the Node Red page and select Open Flow Editor. A new tab will open and you'll be on the Flow Editor page. From here, you are able to drag widgets from the left side that can be connected together to form a flow. We have created a few example flows for you to use and experiment with. You can bring in the example flows by right-clicking on the Flow Editor page and selecting Import Example Flow. Then in the new window, select the @Lunatone Node Red DALI, and in the drop-down, you can now select the example flow that you want to use. These examples can also be found in the datasheet for the IoT Node Red on page 7 or at the link in the description of this video. In the examples download, we have a wide range of flows that you can use and learn from. Let's start by importing the basic control buttons flow from the examples folder and see what that flow looks like. The example folder is filled with many different flows, such as basic controls and color picking, to time brightness commands, and controls that let you choose specific addresses that you want dolly commands to be sent to. In addition, there are also example flows for dolly line forwarding and filtering, as well as trigger actions. They can all be imported as needed. Let's start with the basic dashboard that is easy to understand first, and then make our way back to these examples later. Since the example already includes broadcast control, let's create an additional basic flow that will send a group 0 command, brightness level, direct arc power 50% on the dolly line. We will do this with a simple button on the dashboard labeled group 0 50%. To start, we need our button. Scroll down on the tree menu on the left side of the screen until you reach the dashboard widgets. Then click and drag a button widget to the flow area. The button will have a red triangle, indicating that it requires some input, namely where the button should be shown on the UI. We will choose to place it alongside the example buttons in the tab Dolly Control under the section Brightness Control, and only needs to be confirmed by the button Done. We also want to set our button to the name Group 0 50%. If you want to change the order of the buttons on the dashboard layout, this can be done by selecting the downwards pointing arrow on the right, then Dashboard, then check the group and drag the button to the desired position. Next, we will scroll back to the top and drag a Create Dolly Frame widget onto the flow area. We can see once you release the widget that it will default to the Direct Arc Power command, which is the dolly naming convention for brightness level command. Then we can double click on the widget to open up its menu. From here we can select other commands if we wanted to, however we can also set the dolly data. In this example we want to set the lights to 50%. The dolly arc power is set as a value between 0 and 254, which is calculated to 0 to 100% light level. The conversion is not linear but logarithmic, such that small light level can be adapted finely. The conversion can be done by the IoT. The IoT is thankfully able to also convert to this value. To enter the light level as a percentage instead, change the option from number to percentile and enter the value of 50%. Next, we should confirm the address type. In this example, we will be sending the command to group 0. Finally, we need to tell the program where to send the commands. We will click and drag a Gateway Out widget. Once it is on the flow area, double click on it to open the menu for that widget. In the top right of the screen, you will see an address for the widget. We will need to update this to the address of the IoT device that we are using. In this example, you can either use the IP of the IoT or the convention localhost, as we have made a dashboard that affects this IoT directly. If the interface for the dolly system is on a different IoT or for a different display on the network, you must use the IP of the different device. To do this, click on the drop-down next to the URL input and select Add New Address. Then click on the pen icon on the right side. A new tab will appear. Enter in ws:// and the IP address of the device. Then click on the Add button. You will then see the IP address in the URL section. Click on the Done button and you will see that the widget now updates with the address of the device. Next, we can connect everything together from left to right. Then click on the Deploy button on the top right. Once deployment completes, we can already check our Gateway Out widgets to confirm that they are connected correctly to the device. We will see a green Connected message under the widget if the connection was made correctly. Finally, we can move to the dashboard page and test our buttons. Click on the icon on the top right of the screen that looks like a square with an arrow coming out the top. This will open a new browser tab that will take you to the dashboard of the IoT. Alternatively, you can always enter the IP followed by :1880/UI in any browser window. Here you can click on the buttons that we have created earlier. If you have a working dolly system connected to the IoT, you will see the commands in action. However, if all you have is an IoT, you can open up the dolly monitor to confirm the commands are being sent out on the dolly line. Congratulations! You have successfully set up an IoT Node Red with a basic dashboard. If your system consists of multiple dolly IoTs or displays, it is possible to send dolly commands to multiple dolly lines or even forward commands to different dolly lines using the IoT Node Red. You can import an example of line forwarding from our example folder. Let's go through some of the details on how to send a dolly command to a different dolly line connected through IoTs. When you drag the forwarding and filtering examples in the flow editor, you'll find that there are a lot of different scenarios covered. At the top left is an example of sending one command from one IoT out to multiple IoTs within the same network. Below the first scenario is an example of dolly filters, where you can filter which commands are sent to other IoTs within your network. To the right of the filter scenario is a command forwarding example. Let's adapt it to our imagined use case. In this use case, we have multiple IoTs across a network. The IoTs all have dolly lines, and each dolly line is a master switch that should affect all lines. This master switch sends the command to group 0. If we wanted to create a Node Red system that would allow this, we could use a third example on the left. While the earlier examples forward all commands sent from one IoT to all other IoTs, this third example only selectively forwards the commands that fit the filter criteria. In this case, match the address to group 0. The command can then be forwarded directly or also be manipulated to trigger a different command on other dolly lines. Congratulations! With the dashboard you have created earlier and the many examples at your disposal, you will now be able to make more complex dashboards. You can also use our examples to build your own system that will interconnect to other IoTs and much more. Thanks for watching. For more videos like this, check out our YouTube channel or visit our website.